Good evening, wherever you are on this plane. It's wonderful to have everyone here, and we can see people are tuning in. This live stream has been organized by Simone again, which credit to you, Simone, for pulling this together. It's been an absolute honor learning all of the things we have in the last week or two. We had Jackie Phoenix teaching us all about Article 61 a few weeks ago, and that triggered 550 odd responses, requests for information. So tonight we're equally as excited to have a special guest on. So Simone, why don't you introduce our guests?
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here again. Thank you, Robin, for setting this up for us. I want to introduce you to my new friend, and my new friend is Daniel. Daniel is up in Bolton, but we crossed paths. Well, I'll let him tell you a bit more about the story, but it all came out of the bottom of the last chat that we had, the last interview we had with Jackie. It was yourself, Robin, who came to me to tell me that there's this group of gentlemen who are already have been exploring different ways, not just Article 61, but other commercial routes or recourses or remedies that can be undertaken through the common law. And it was just really interesting that we ended up having this conversation. There was a group of us, and everybody, I'm going to introduce you to Danny, because this guy is gifted. And I know that you won't like me saying that, Danny, because you're so humble, but honestly, you are very, very gifted. The way that God has wired your brain, it's really special. And I really want you to share with everybody else your journey and the processes that you've undertaken and the understanding that you've gleaned along the way, because I think actually it's really helpful, and it's going to be really helpful.
Thanks, Simone. So why don't we start at the beginning? Welcome, Danny. If you'd kindly unmute yourself, that would be great. And why don't you give the viewers, as Simone asked, a little tiptoe through your journey? What got you started in this?
I've known pretty much all my life there was something wrong, but until like 6 years ago, I started seeing the cracks. Started with a TV license. I've never paid one of them in 18 years, but every process that these corporations are putting out, it's all the same. It's all linked, and just off the back of me knowing things was unjust, unright, and the back of the TV license, I've just started learning. 5 years ago, I've been full on learning, and this covers every cooperation because they're dead. So, I mean, just under the simple maxims of law, only a man can deem another man liable. So when you've got like the council, it's soulless. You know, they cannot form a contract with any living man. And the fact of the matter is, we're the masters, we the people. You know, these corporations.
We will get to that, Danny, because we need to take people on this journey, because not many people are even going to understand some of the concepts that you're going to lay out for us. So why don't you tell us about your accident, because this is what triggered. You were telling me a bit about your childhood and the way you grew up and the difficult challenges that you faced then. But there was a moment in time in 2015 that was a catalyst for this journey that you're currently on and have been for the last 5 years. Why don't you, because actually it's a miracle what you told me. So
yeah, it was a kidney and a pancreas transplant that was due to diabetes. I got that at an early age, and that's where I believe I had my wake up. I wasn't eating properly at the time. I went into hospital, obviously because of my illness, and I was pumped full of this sterilized water. And then after my operation, I've been cut open twice. I was on the normal ward. I couldn't really tell you if it was 5 days, 6 days after. There was no process of time, obviously. I was flat out most of the time. I had this vivid dream where I'm claustrophobic anyhow, but I was clawing through mud. I ended up kept being dragged back, and I got through brambles and thorns and that. I was getting dragged back, and then I eventually broke through like pallets to see like overwhelming bright light, and I was sat upright. That's the first time I ever sat upright after my operation, in a cold sweat, shivering, and I believe that was my enlightenment. You know, the story of Jacob Israel, the land of Peniel, and all that. I do believe that triggered everything off. From that point onwards, I've been able to memorize stuff. I've been able to see stuff, and things resonate with me, and I can return what I've read or what I've been told, and that. So I believe that my accident has put me on this path.
Interesting.
Because when you were younger, you suffered with dyslexia, right? And you know, language, even, you know, to write sentences and to read sentences and formulate them, you struggled with that. And now, after this incident, it's almost like the mist, the fog just disappeared.
That's right. Yeah. I started breaking words down. I've reading dictionaries, etymology dictionaries, and finding out where words originated from. Like I said, for me, the most imperative thing of this journey is the language. You know, it's every document you get from a cooperation is perjured. So, I mean, when you go to court answering these documents, yourself has committed perjury. And this is the problem we find in a society, because most condemn somebody speaking a truth anyhow, but these persons can't even read or write their own name. You know, they can never ever be a name capitalized properly in English in the noun. You know, and the language is in all your bills comes in many different forms of foreign language.
Right. Well, let's go back, because it does all start with language, and it's really interesting, Robin, because when you look at the scriptures, the sacred scriptures, you see in the beginning in Genesis, where the Tower of Babel with Nimrod in Babylonia and Babylon, and he wanted to create one world religion, one world governance, one, you know, this is the new world order back then, you know, 6,000 years ago. And they built the tower to try and get up to heaven, but God confused their language. And so it's really important that people understand that the reason why we are where we're at today is actually because of the language and how much it's been corrupted. And this is what it goes back to. So you had that ancient civilization where in biblical terms, you see confusion of language, that they spoke Babel. It was confusion. And then you see the same thing happening in the Roman Catholic Church. You see it in the Vatican when they changed everything to Latin so that people couldn't understand it. And then you also see it today. And as much as many people would just assume that the English language is the English language, and it's always been the way it has, but actually it's not. The English language that we know is not readable. It's not intelligible, and that's because we haven't been taught from a young age what grammar is, what proper English is, and how to use language. And, you know, you always hear the old sayings about, you know, wordsmith, you know, words are sharp, you know, words can, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. You know, words carry life and death in the Bible, in the scriptures. It talks about your tongue carries, you know, has the ability to bring forth life or bring forth death. And these people, these criminals that we're all subjected to at the moment, the horrors, the evil, they operate within their own language. So, for example, the Law Society, which is a society like any other society, when you form a society, part of that is having your own language, creating your own language. So the Law Society created its own language to be able to put that into legal documents, which is commercial law, not common law. So we're talking about two different jurisdictions. Danny, would you like to elaborate further on that part? Because you know a lot about the past and the Justinian deception, and but talk to tell people, help take them on that journey.
Like the Justinian deception's on about the capitalization of the words, the capitis diminutor maxima, and that within itself, then 530 AD, it lowered every man and woman's status to a mere slave, and that's just through literacy. You know, if your name's in lowercase, then you're the man or the woman, and then when they put it in uppercase, it's called a word mark, which is a bond, which is like a logo, a brand, which links to your birth certificate. Because under the birth certificate, again, it's all foreign language. You've got a bond number, and this is where you're born into bondage. It's just basically full-on slavery. You know, the title they give you is fictitious. MR means a minor. So the minors were the young children they used to snatch back in the Admiralty days to put on the ships. So minor, it also stands for peon. And peon in Southeast Asia means the lowest military ranking, which now ties up to the minor, the dog's body on the ship. And then when you get a correspondence saying the legal occupier, that means that you're the combatant of the state, you know, the land that we're supposed to be on. So everything is just, like you said before, it is tied up to the military. The Admiralty is what it's tied up to. The deception, you see, I put this to a barrister. The Whore of Babylon is a false prophet. It's the City of London, the Rothschilds' City of London. And under the Magna Carta, they've got no right in doing what they're doing to us people on English soil. And this is where the language comes in. You know, we don't know who we are, so we just we panic and we pay, or we do whatever it may say. You know, it's I've put it to a lot of judges, solicitors, MPs, and so on. You know, in a roundabout way, I said to an MP, I went through the grammatics of the language, it all being hocus pocus, block language, this, that, and the other. I asked him, how could we a people get any rights voting for the devil with a dead ledger? Because that's what your name capitalized is. It appears on your gravestone like that. And he stepped backwards.
And it's a corporation, which is a dead entity. So
a body corporation, yeah. That's why you get someone's dead to court. You know,
tell us about the court, because that's so funny. So people can get it, there is a common law jurisdiction, which is the highest law. It talks about our sovereignty, and it's tied to the Bible, you know, God's 10 commandments, you know, not to harm, not to injure, not to commit fraud, and to keep the peace. Those kind of, that's the common law. And then you have something called statutory, the statutory law, the statutory realm, which is commercial law, which is maritime, which is admiralty law, which is what it's the law of the sea rather than the law of the land. Now that's what all their contracts operate within, the statutory commercial law. And as I understand it, as a commercial entity, it cannot contract with a flesh and blood man or woman, and therefore has to make you a dead entity as well, a corporation as well, so that it can then make joinder with you. Is that in a roundabout way?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I say, we're all taught illiterate. This is the problem under the Rockefeller education system. There's even these lawyers and that you may speak to, you know, some of them have a degree of language about them, but I think they've overruled that and all, you know, because the ones I've spoken to, they can't grasp half of the things I'm saying. Like I say, I left school, I'm dyslexic, I left school with 4 Ds. You know, it wasn't my forte learning, but it's just total deceit. You see, this is the devil's work, isn't it? It's deceitful. So if you read the glossary on your bills, it'll mean nothing. And then when you read the legalese underneath it on its own, it'll mean nothing. But when you read them together, it comes together.
So are you saying that the government, the system, this beast system, has dropped our status to a slave by capitalizing us. But not only that, they've created this fiction or this dead entity from us that now they're profiting, that they profit from. But it also connects to the Say-to-V Act in 1666, the Great Fire of London, right?
Yeah.
So could you tell us how take it from where I took it, Justinian, Roman, Catholic, and then it goes through to, the 1600s, and then we get to where we are now, or in the 1930s with the collapse of the banks back then?
Well, the SQV, I think it was originally in 1505, Henry VIII and then Pope Benedict, and it came out in 1666 after the Great Fire. But that was an Admiralty Act anyhow, for people dead or lost on the sea. But how they've written it now, we're all dead, lost on the Holy See, a delinquent or an infantile. And obviously that's because we can't read and write properly. And this is how they've subjugated us. So, like I said, it's also linked to the Talmud, this, because it specifically states, I think it's Bava Kamara 113a, that a Jew can lie to a Goyim in the legal. So this is all we are to these persons. We're Goyim, which means livestock. And this is how they're doing it, through deceit. They're just raping every single land, man and woman that's upon these lands, through deceit, which and again, because the Satanist, deceit is the devil. It's the devil's work.
Yeah.
When you ask them for these styles manuals and dictionaries, they look at you as if you're mad, because obviously half of these have been taught and they will never understand the simple capitalized words. You can get any dictionary, English dictionary, and there will never ever be a capitalized word therein.
Because a capitalized word doesn't exist. It doesn't
exist in the
like
English.
You were explaining to me about the Bible in the courts, how they fraudulently. So just explain a bit about that as an example to everybody.
Well, the Bible, the King James's Bible, is full of glossa. It starts off with a capitalized I. That goes down 3 lines, and then the rest of it is in sync. IN is upper and lowercase capitalized, and then everything else is normal English. But you see in the King James's Bible, the Lord is a massive L, and then everything else is capitalized ORD in a smaller format. So that's a poisonous word, that when you read it grammatically, it doesn't really say anything, and it's all capitalized. So, I mean, that King James's Bible, it's got all sorts of flaws in it, especially with the glossa. It's got things usurped in the borders, and this is what they're doing. You see, again, it's the devil's work, so it's got to come up from underneath, and the usurping. But they're holding us. It's called a sesquius position, and they believe that they can utilize, be the usury over our SQV trust fund, and it doesn't matter. Like I said, whatever the cooperation is, it could be the police, the council, they all trying to attain a joinder through this deceit, and then in the Bible, the King James's Bible, it's supposed to be written in 1611. It mentions the Queen, it mentions the government, and we didn't have one then, not in 1611. So really, you shouldn't be swearing on books, especially ones that you can't read and understand.
But you were saying that they've purposefully changed, for example, the name of the Lord in the King James Bible into glossa, so that when they swear on an oath, that the word Lord within the Bible, you can't read it if you were looking at it for grammatically, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't mean it would just be blank, because you've you've made it capitals, and as you would put it, bastardized it.
Yeah.
And so they're swearing on a Bible to get away with their trickery, knowing that they won't be punished by God, or not that they won't be punished by God, but to prevent themselves.
it gives you an illusion of make-believe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you're swearing on the righteous, the holy book sort of thing. But like we said, it's been bastardized. So you can't, it even says in the Bible, you shouldn't be swearing off to anybody, really.
Yeah.
You know, it's to the divine creator and the divine creator only. Or the divine creator is our judge. You know, there's no man that can sit there and judge another.
Can we talk about the Vatican and how they've influenced the legal system?
The Vatican, it all falls under the canon laws. Going back to the early Rome, if you was worshipping there in the Vatican, they used to give you a fine. You go to your service, well, I'd say a fine. They used to charge you in case you sinned the following week coming. So basically, what's that? It's exactly the same here. With every bill you pay, all roads lead to Rome. And going back to the satanic trilogy, the Whore of Babylon, being City of London, the two beasts are the Vatican and Washington, D.C. See, the City of London's full of dragons. So the story is the Whore of Babylon aligned herself with a dragon, the two beasts, and strolled alongside Lucifer, or the devil, which is your paperwork, before they fought God, or in this case, God's people. But the Vatican have been doing this for a long time. And if you look at the chambers of the dead, outside is proper grammatic language. And then when you go within, it's this dog Latin. It's hyphenated, you know, and this is how that's called the language of the dead. Dog Latin's the language of the illiterate.
Danny, tell us a bit more about the twisting of language, because, you know, in relation to the court systems and the contracts that they're writing, and give us some examples of some words that they've corrupted or that they use to cause confusion.
Well, like I say, it's in the glossa, but let's have a look at this letter there. I mean, it starts off, it says, this office previously notified you of an alleged offence captured on camera. So you start from the beginning. The word office is poisonous anyway, because any word starting with a vowel followed by two consonants in quantum grammar is poisonous. Previously, PRE and ending with LY are mixed suffixes. So that's like past and future tense phrases. There's nothing ever of the now time. And then you read further, it says you. It says you use a banking term, and that means that you are a debtor. You see, you only can ever have we, ourselves, the people. So every corporation is bankrupt. We bought the banks out, and that's a quick twist then. They may address a capitalized name, but they never address that name thereafter. Use third person plural. So they use the third person because it's not specifically we, it's your birth certificate who they're actually addressing. You know, and you further digress of the language of and, they're two poisonous words. Alleged, that's a poisonous word. Again, it's a vowel followed by two consonants, but alleged in itself, the meaning is without proof. So they're taking money off all us with no prima facie. There is no fact, there is no basis. It's just allegations or beliefs and or presumptions. And most people were that feared because, again, it's the work of the devil. So people live in fear when they get these bills. And the first thing they do is rush out and pay them and fret, oh, I can't afford it a bit, whatever.
Danny, sorry to interrupt you, but you mentioned all the banks are bankrupt. So how is it you've come to that conclusion?
Well, many, there was all bankrupted really. In the 1800s, you had the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. Then 1938, the Geneva Convention, come the Gold Standard Act 1931, which specifically states, you see, this is the person that they're addressing. So in the Gold Standard Act, it says the Bank of England or persons thereafter have no liability. These are forced liabilities saying you owe the dead some money. Okay. Then if you only have to look at 2008, where we bought allegedly the banks out, but these were the shareholders that we bought out. So this is how thick I believe the people are or have become. They really do not understand anything, especially not in the political sphere. They just jump on board every 4 years and go away willy-nilly with a pen and they sign the rights away. with no further ado. But we bought the banks out in 2008. You've also got the Clearfield Doctrine, and that specifically states that the state is the trustees. They're the fiduciary trustees benefiting off us, the creditors.
Yes. So for those that are thinking, well, what, are there going to be any action steps that come out of this live stream? Yes, there are. I just want to thank everyone for being here. We've got 196 live viewers at the minute. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. Simone and I are following a very kind of open dialogue format tonight. And what the aim of this conversation will be is the call to action down below. So if you'd like to stay in touch with Danny, who there's a group of people in the UK who are doing wondrous work on taking on the institutions and standing in the power of a couple of things and instruments that we're going to discuss later on in this live stream. So stay tuned. There is definitely some action steps that we can take from here. So hang in there. We're just giving some context and some history and giving some insights into how we've been, how the truth's been obfuscated and how sneaky the enemy's been, and how downright audacious they've been in taking over the entire financial system. We're just about to get, and the legal system, and we're just about to get into some of the instruments that have been created by the powers that should not be and think they are. That have essentially caught us out and keep us bound using the straw man. So you talked about the Clearfield Doctrine. Why don't you now start to go into some of the things like some of the instruments that get used today? And Simone, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, actually, what I found really fascinating, Danny, is when you were telling me about the courts and you know, the way it's set out, the dress code that they wear, and what the meanings and the symbolism is behind it all. Because effectively what they've done, what the devil has done, is turned us from being a creditor into a debtor. But we are the creditor and they are the debtor. But when you walk into their fake courts, they are treating you as if you are the debtor instead of the creditor. And this is how they get you every single time. But I want you to talk about the wizardry that's used and how it all links back.
Yeah, it's a court executor. The censor is what you're going into. You see, our presumption is that they're all sworn in, they're all there for the queen and all this, that, and the other. Every court was dissolved also in 2008. We do not have a rule of law. So what they're doing, it's just total violation of trust law. You know, they want you to give them your name. And when somebody gives them the full name, you now become their trustee. You know, everybody just has to look at the birth certificate. It states in the bottom left or the top right, not to be used as identification. But this surname is not our name. We do not have a surname. That's the Crown's name. We have patronymics. You see, the surname is what they're after because that's the surety of money.
So my name should be Simone from the family of Marshall.
Yeah, or from the clan Marshall, yeah. You know, it's just deviant, and a surname in the etymology in Latin means the above name. So there's nothing above your Christian name. You know, that some of these idiots say that, oh, we don't know who you are. But they do know who you are. If you read the Bible, there was never any surname presented like, you know, David and Isaiah, Abraham. There was only Jacob Israel that got the epithet, which is a surname of Israel. You know, so we're just Christian people with Christian names. So for me, the wizardry is trying to attain for them your name, the surname. And then once they've got that, it's a court executor of some sort. So what that means is the judge is not a judge. He's being paid or acting for somebody else. And it's until you give them the name, then they become the beneficiary of your estate. And that's how they sweep the jurisdictions and so on us, you know.
Tell us about the courtroom setup and the judge's outfit and the, you know,
the black and white, because it's a wake, isn't it, where you're going to? It's you've been summoned dead. So it's like a clergyman's outfit, so to speak. But they're that deluded and psychotic, these Freemasonic judges. They believe that the old sheep wool on the head stops the divine creator from seeing the impure thoughts. No, this is how deluded they are. They will meet the maker one day, that's for sure. But the actual court's set up like a ship. You know, the judge is sat on the higher deck and he's looking down. He wants you to rise for him or her, rising from the dead. But once you open the floodgate and that, you know, you're in their jurisdiction. You have two banks at either side. So the banks are on every river to deflect the currency. You know, it's all about the money. And this is the illusion. It's as if they're doing something, but there's not one judge that I've come across that has any accreditation. They have no bonds. They're actually trading unsecured securities with no licenses. Every single judge and court for civil matters, especially.
Because that's something that all public servants must have, right? They must have a surety bond because you are in a public office. Is that right?
Yeah, they need the surety bond and the indemnity liability bonds, but they don't have any. You see, these chief executives of the council are an American title under the Companies Act 2006. You know, it's they get top money. They get more money than the prime minister and that, but that's covers the identity. They're supposed to be paying people back out of that. So what the council specifically are doing is renting a courtroom out. There is no jurisdiction, and it could be your next door neighbour that's deeming you liable. You know, you're not in a contract with these are our servants. So they're renting a courtroom out and just rubber stamping everything. There is no presumption of innocence. You know, we people cannot get in these courts and defend the frivolous claims. You know, especially when it's a corporation bringing a man to court, it's just rubber stamped. You're ignored and fast tracked through. Now this is where people need to wake up.
And this ties into the courts. They are not courts; they're business administration meetings. They don't fall under the proper courtroom guidelines, right? What a proper court de jure is, what a proper court is with a jury. And what they've done is they've taken that element out and confused the language. And every time you step in there, Joe Bloggs steps in there, they are none the wiser to being a dead corporate entity, and therefore create this joinder with them, which offsets money on their side, because they basically capitalize on that. They create a bond. If you, for example, if you go to jail, if you get sentenced to jail, they take out a bond on your prison sentence.
It's off your birth certificate. It's all off the birth certificate, the SESQV trust fund. You see, the national insurance number they give you is the dividend of your birth certificate trust fund. This is what these foreign lawyers and legal EU Bar Society are doing. They have no claim of this land. These are our lands. And this is why I get really wound up with persons amongst us. And I'll be discriminate using that word. Sheeple may be better. But, you know, our grandparents fought for these lands. And then you've got this fake tribe of persons purporting to be Jewish, these Khazars, that have no claim to any land. But they've taken over everyone's countries. Wherever there's a fractional reserve bank, is debt slavery. So they've raped the lands. We can't fish our seas. I mean, what sort of idiot believes this? You know, who are the government who are there for us to protect and serve? How can they say that we can't fish our own lands? You know, that itself caused havoc in the fishing industry. There's many men that have lost their jobs. I mean, this was what we was born into. You know, some of them, and they can't fish our own waters. So basically, like I said, going back to these, and I will say the word idiots, those who vote, they all are, you know, they really need to think what they're doing. Everything's been sold. The NHS has been sold. Yeah. You know, all your councils have been sold. We don't have the police. These are little piggy banks. This is why they come and hit you with a civil charge. It says in the 9 policing principles, they can't get involved in acts of parliament. They have no warrant card. They have no oath of office. You know, and again, it's all allegations like this letter here from Nottinghamshire Police, alleged speeding fine. You know, they want me to give the name, but they can't do anything, it says, because I've not given my name. I'll just ignore them. If they want to take me to court, then so be it. But, you know, we'll deal with them when we cross them bridges. Like,
look out if they do see you in court. Yeah.
Well, I've got this one here at Bolton Magistrates in Wigan. She's running scared. I put her on notice under the Roman Canon Law 2057. Phoned them up the other day. It was Friday last week. And ironically, she was in a meeting. So I explained what I wished for. The woman said, I can't help you, phone back. So I phoned them back. They blocked my number. These are public buildings. So I had to 141 her. And then when I phoned her back, the same woman picked up and said she's in another room. I said, could you not get her? She said, I can't. So I phoned back a bit later. And ironically, she'd just gone out. And this is what we're dealing with. It's a fiction. Everything, it really is a fiction. You know, well, obviously the reality is your friends, your family. Well, friends is questionable, and family, I suppose, to some extent. But, you know, your pets, your friends, your family, you know. It's like if you get a car, it's registered with the DVLA. So it's only the illusion. You may believe it's yours, but within the paperwork, it's not. You know, same with your mortgage. The bank saw your signature on. I mean, if people had a look at what happened in Iceland, I think it was around 2008, 2010. Same with what Hitler did. He arrested all the bankers, you know, and everybody got the leniency then within the mortgage, because as soon as you sign for these contracts, they're paid in full. You know, we had
explain a bit more about that, Danny, because some people won't understand that.
The money's a promissory note. So the promissory notes in your pocket are fraudulent. They're all fraudulent because they're not properly signed. You know, and it's questionable if that man or woman whose signature is there on it actually lived. So a promise can only be made.
It says on a note, I promise to pay the bearer, right? Yeah. So you've got this illusion that you've got money.
You go and work for it, and you give somebody a tenner or a 20 for your shopping or whatever, and you've got that illusion then that you're actually giving them something of worth. But you can never make a demand, as it says on the note, for the money, because the Rothschilds have robbed all the gold. They robbed your lands. They're giving you these debt slave tokens because they're Satanists. And the only return, well, what we give them is everything. We give all our sacred time up. You know, people are working 40 hours a week. You know, you'll never get that second, that minute, that hour, them hours back ever again. It's gone. And all you get at the end of the week, it doesn't matter if it's £1 million or £1,000 or £10. It's all one of something. And that's where the presumption kicks in, you know, because zero means nothing in numerology. So you've got these debt slave tokens that you believe are of worth because of the hardship you put into attaining them. You know, and you're not being paid in full for your time lost. But like you said, the promissory note, only real men and women can make a promise as a wish. You know, and this is the deception. That's why your signature creates. They're using our signatures to create their debt-based currency. You see, like with your mortgage, once you sign for your mortgage, the banks sell that on, and you get a portfolio of holders on your mortgage. You know, the banks keep selling that promissory note on, rather than it stopping at the person who they've given it to, sold it to.
There was a concept that one of our colleagues said, which was for any of the contracts that you sign, so your gas bill, electric bill, insurance contracts, mobile phone contracts, all of that paperwork essentially is kind of paid in full on signature, isn't it? Out of your bonds. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Well, the banks. Every direct debit that you've paid, the banks have been paid. You see, as soon as you sign, it's a financial instrument, is what you're signing, masqueraded as a bill and all this nonsense. But the banks cash in on that. So whatever your contract's for your direct debit, every time you pay, the bank get paid that money.
So
and what they've not disclosed is the indemnity bond, you see, because they've not disclosed that. It's called a statutory indemnity clawback. So for every single direct debit you've paid or people's paid, you can get all that money back, every single penny. And it doesn't matter if it was over 6 years ago, it's not statutory barred. So you can claim, I said 20 years direct debits have been going. I don't know how long off the top of my head, but say for instance, you've been paying them since they started 20 years ago, you can claim all the money back for the longevity of the contract or the terms, you know, whenever you sign for it.
So is it just the value of the direct debits, or is it the entire value of the contract? So if it was a mortgage of say 200,000 and the interest over 25 years was another 100, let's say, so total payable 300, what is it that you could claim back?
On the direct debit, everything, whatever the direct debit is, you know, if you've paid
so it's just
it's the money for the direct debit on that, and standing orders, I believe.
Okay, so anything that's gone out.
Bank details.
So the cumulative balance of everything that you've paid up to date is
on direct debit and standing orders.
Okay.
It's similar to the PPI. Remember, we started paying people back 5,000 plus.
Yeah.
You know, because of the conned us again. No matter what a bank does or a bank manager, I've dealt with loads of them. They're all parasites. You know, because, and I say that because these are Freemasons. These are the scum of the earth. And the Freemasons' rule is about enlightenment. So once you show a bit of intuition or enlightenment, there is no happy medium. You know, the only outcome they may have is to deem you mental. You know, there is no recognition that you may be a brother, or I mean, I'm not into that Freemasonry. You know, it's just total condemnment. And this is because everything's based on a lie. It's all lies of these Khazars.
Right. So can we go through an example of something that maybe you've felt worthy of pursuing somebody, something, you know, some entity? Can you talk about who that was, when it was, and what you did?
Well, at the minute, I'm pursuing the delivery business manager there at the court. Because it's persistent now. I've lost jobs because of the council terrorising me at work through my illness and that. You know, they have no right contacting any man or woman at work for an attachment of earnings. You're not signed in. And I'm also coming after the chief executive at the same time of the council because I've had enough of them. You know, you try and speak lenient to them. They had a conspiracy on my medical report to get me sectioned. And that also links to my local MP, Yasmin Qureshi. You know, these MPs, they've got two Dun and Bradstreet numbers. So they're not here for us. You know, that's the Bilderberg and the trilateral agreements, I believe. I've asked, but they will never give you answers. So at the minute, I'm just coming forward for the delivery manager here at the court and the chief executive. I'm just on a waiting curve now because I've served my paperwork. I've just got to wait 30 days. And the failure to answer that, then I'm going to be pushing forward with an M1 form, which is in CPR Rule 7 Civil. And I'm going to specifically put on that I want to progress this to CPR Rules 8 because they're all committing misfeasance in public office. So at the minute, I mean, I have won out of court with some of these firms and that, but my battle now lies in court. I've come that far. They've ignored everything. I mean, going back to the Article 61, I've served on the 5 documents. It has worked for some corporations, but they tend to ignore. They're working through cease and desist, equitable estoppels, you know, conditional offers of acceptance. They're just relentless. So I do believe that this is the only way, linking to the Bible. You know, some people say don't go to court and all that, but I don't see any other way for a man or woman to get their standing, which is under the Roman Canon Law 2057 and competency, you know, without making an apparition at the court. You know, you have to claim who you are. And under the SESQV, you have to declare that you're not dead or lost beyond the seas.
Or incompetent.
Yeah.
Shall we go through what is an evidence of life then now?
Well, no, actually, Danny, tell us about Bolton Council, your experience there, and when you turned up at their offices one day, and what led you to turning up at their offices?
Yeah, well, obviously I learnt the language, so I went in and I asked the woman if I could speak to the chief executive, and she tried declining me. So I told her that I wasn't speaking to one of the illiterate idiots on the customer service desk. Customer service, it makes me laugh because we're their masters. But a woman come down from upstairs, and after 15 minutes, her head fell off. I was only speaking about the language. So she went and got the chief executive for us and the 151 officer. And it was a very uncomfortable hour for them because I didn't move from the American Sign Language glosser from the Chicago Manual of Styles, and the name and everything's American. I mentioned this because every corporation's mentioned on the registered on the Dun & Bradstreets. Her Majesty's Government, CIK 00014552617, is on the US Securities and Exchange Commission. So that's a direct link to American. It's American Sign Language from a Chicago Manual of Styles, what they're using. Your birth certificate's in dollars, your Treasury Direct's in dollars. So this is a racket from the Federal Reserve Bank of Criminals, you know, and they actually asked me nervously, why do I keep mentioning America? Because they know what they're doing. And under the UCC, I forgot what title it is, but they're committing treason. They're committing high treason.
That's the Uniform Commercial Code, which are codes set out for their statutory contracts, that things must be set out in a certain way, certain writing, certain language has got to be used, right? And if they don't adhere to that, then it makes it null and void.
Well, this is what every corporation, it's like a Bible for corporations, and that's for their terms. You know, we shouldn't really know these, but just for instance, in the UCC, Title 181342 is where they're addressing the legal fiction and grammatically incorrect address, legal fiction and an address. Now, on all your bills is a PO box, which means a non-contracting venue. It's just a slot in a post office, like a pigeonhole. So that's now Title 181341, which is mail fraud. And every corporation commits mail fraud. There's a man there in a mental health ward. He got thrown in a prison. Well, he got put in a mental health ward in prison and a mental health ward. His name's John Patterson. And he was exposing this Finchley Road fraud. You know, all your MPs are involved in this, specifically Tony Blair, you know, your David Beckhams and all that. And this is what it is. They just got like, it's a building, nobody occupies it, nobody goes there, but it's got thousands of addresses operating from that one place. It's 798 780 Finchley Road, you know, and he's been sectioned for exposing this. But every corporation is deeply involved in mail fraud, and they're all addressing your birth certificate.
So even what you're saying is, this is a technical way of getting them in their own language. Basically, because they are not adhering to the UCC codes, which every corporation has to comply with, or it's a code of conduct. That in itself is grounds to make a claim.
For me, yeah, saying? Because it's fraud. It's fraudulent conveyance of language, which I believe is under Title 181969A of the UCC. But they're subjugating you into a debt slave, which is Title 421994. That's the position, that's the legal fiction title, MR. And then you've got the Peonage Act to back that up, 1867, the abolishment of debt slavery. So in hindsight, I've eradicated debt slavery. We all know we're debt slaves, but it's full-on slavery. I mean, if I was just to say to you, oh, you're such and such, that's your name, give me your full name, or demanding a full name, irrelevant of what you give me, and tell you that's not your full name, that's full-on slavery. If you're not in a contract to these corporations, they've got no right, no point of addressing you. And when they're demanding who you are and telling you who you are, you know, under Genesis 1:26, we've got dominion over the surname, the name that creepeth upeth, all fowl in the sky, all fish in the sea, all creatures on land, including those that creepeth upper. So the Bible is our remedy. I firmly believe the language in the Bible, but you know, we're a slave to the system, and it's full-on slavery. I mean, you've got these idiots going around, oh, black, white lives matter, gay, right? It's a nonsense. You know, we're all the same. It doesn't matter what you are. And if you believe that you deserve more rights than somebody else, well, it's my belief that you should be shot dead for being an idiot. But, you know, we've all got unalienable rights that are being encroached on and trespassed all over by the dead.
And just for those who've joined us in the last sort of 20, 30 minutes, I just want to repeat what we said right at the start, and that is that Danny belongs to a group of gentlemen who are absolutely ace top people at this whole subject. And what Simone and I are really keen to do is put some step-by-step instructions on how we can take action ourselves. So tonight is more of a conversation. It's more of a, who is Danny? What's he been up to? What kind of things can we learn from him? And it might seem a little bit sort of meandering, but don't worry, because Simone and I will put together a pack, and all you have to do is email Robin3108, as it says on the bottom, at hotmail.com, with the subject of exit info, with a space in between exit and info, and we'll stick you on our mailing list to receive that in due course, because Simone and I are on a steep learning curve right now, aren't we, Simone? And we want to make sure that what we capture is something of value and something that we can hit hard as a, well, don't want to steal Simone's thunder at the end, but certainly don't want it to just be one or two individuals. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Go ahead, Simone. Did you have something?
No, it was really just, you know, I find it very fascinating that this whole deception has been hidden from the whole of humanity, basically, and it's been lost. You know, when you're born, the birth, you registering your children is actually giving your child away to the government. It's giving your child over to the state. You registering your car is giving your car over to the state. You get a notice back saying you are the registered keeper, but you're not the owner anymore. You've basically given it over to the crown. So you give your children over to the crown, you give your car over to the crown, then you buy a house and you give your title of your land to the crown, and then you're taxed throughout your whole entire life, well, apart from when you're a child, on your employment. But not only that, you're then taxed on your pension at the end of it. So it's double dipping the whole way through, because also when you take a mortgage out, what that any debt that is attached to you, once you've signed for something, that signature becomes a bond. That's what I'm learning. So if I take a credit card out, credit card company, yeah, here you go, here's your £10,000 credit spend limit. But that in itself allowed the bank to dip into my trust fund and take out that money. And so when I'm paying back that loan, I'm basically doubly paying for the luxury of borrowing my own money. That's why mortgages are proven now to be fraud. And there's actually case law that proves that it's fraudulent on a number of reasons. The main one is that it's not a contract. It's not a legally binding contract, because two men didn't sit down and have a meeting of minds and then both sign it at the same time with a witness. You basically sign this deed, it goes to the bank, they release the funds, and that's it. Where's the meeting of the minds, and where's the two signatures? So that, you know, that in itself is fraud. And then there's other reasons why mortgages are fraud. But the main thing is that they are double dipping. They're going into your signature as a license for them to go into your trust fund, take out those funds, and then charge you extra and interest for the luxury.
It's the sacrificial cow. You see, I sent you the Treasury Direct on your birth certificate. I won't mention what what it is, but you've got the I bond, the E bond, and the EE bond. So they've taken 3 times on any bill that they've sent you. They've already been prepaid. Every bill is prepaid. It says bank giro credit. So they've taken out of our estate that our grandparents and great grandparents have gifted us and fought for. You know, this is what they've stolen. and then they make us pay again.
Just go back on that though, Danny.
The story of the sacrificial cow, if you kill a man's cow, you replace the cow, and then you replace it with a further 3. So there's 4 cows. So that's all subliminal, because the devil worshippers, they've already been paid 3 times. In the 90s, the late 90s, these corporations got done for treble dipping. They're actually quadruple dipping on the minimum. And we're the sacrificial cows, which ties up to that satanic book, the Talmud, you know, where a Jew can lie to a goyim in the legal. The word goyim means you're an animal, so you're livestock. And it says this on your birth certificate, fidelity.com, common stock. So you're an animal. The people are voting for these parasites. These are the all. I don't care if it's Tony Blair or if it's Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Donald Trump. They're not here for any of us. People really need to grasp this, because men like myself are getting condemned for speaking some substance. You know, I'm not saying I speak facts all the time, but to the best of my knowledge, you know, I'm open for to speak to anybody, you know. But I mean, to be condemned straight away, and then they're going voting for these compulsive liars that is proven every single time they vote them in. It's just an absolute absurdity, you know. But they're taking from us at least 3 times from our estate before they want us to pay them again.
Which is worth in the region of.
Well, Danny, you were saying that actually it didn't even start with us. So my grandparents, their grandparents go all the way back. Since 1666, since that act where the Great Fire came in, the Parliament passed this act through the Sestuve Act, which declared every woman, man, and child lost at sea or declared dead, which meant that every estate of every man, woman, and child was taken into trust by the government, by these corrupt criminals. And what they did is they legislated the 1666 Act in French, so that even if you were literate, you'd have to understand French in order to understand what it said. So not only did they pass it in secret in Parliament, but they also wrote it in French. And it was to basically, this act said that anyone can claim back their estate that is entrusted to the government within 7 years. Isn't that right, Danny?
Pretty much, yeah.
And then
they passed it through the back door. But the reason they wrote it in French, it was supposed to be wrote in Latin, but the well-to-do of the time wouldn't have been able to read the Latin, so they put it in French. So they could then go back to the government, or be it wherever there of the time, and claim everything back for what they've lost, if it's wife, children, husband, house, you know, estates, whatever, horses, and they could claim everything back and get fully reimbursed, revested for what they'd lost. But and your Joe Bloggs, like your baker or your blacksmith and so on and so forth, the likes of me, would have got nothing, because you was basically born at the time into a family and you followed the traits of the family, be it a joiner or a baker or be it whatever. So you only really knew what your family did and what you was going to do. You know, you only knew your trade. So that's why the majority of the people then was illiteracy. But that was passed through the back door in 1666, after the Black Death in 1665, and when London were burning in the Great Fire. And that's what they put that out for the well-to-do, to get all their estates back of what they lost.
And so what our government in this day, or if you go back to the 1930s, when the crash, when all the when the financial crash happened, that's when every government that they owned started to issue birth certificates. You had to register your children. They gave you a capitalized surname when you didn't have surnames before. Is that right? Is this about the right time that came in?
I'm not 100% on that, but I know that they've been taken over for the government, like I said, just for their benefit. Like I said, the capital, I can't verify. I've seen a lot of birth certificates from 19 40s onwards. Like me, my grandparents who deceased, my mum's, my dad's, and my own, and that, and a few other people that I've done work for. But I mean, I can't really go too far back and confirm that there was all written in uppercase, you know, because there was some form of literacy about us. You know, the schooling was a lot different than what it is now in like the 1900s, when at the 1920s and so on. There was at least sort of a decent standard of reading, writing, and arithmetic. But I mean, the only thing that I do understand with this is that they've just taken our estates, and all your MPs are there. They're just raping us blind, you know. And this is what's happening. They're taking from our estates these corporations, and you know, they're all pocketing. You see, your local council will have another company. Your local council, everybody's local council, will be a secretary, which come from the word secretariatum, which means persons in office to keep a secret. And they're working for all your local MPs. You see, this one here in Bolton's called Bolton Innovation Technical Centre. And they purport that to be of education, but it's not. It can't be. It's science. So it's an academic discipline, not an education like reading, writing, arithmetic. And that's where I've addressed them. And that's where I got a conspiracy on my medical report, because they addressed the council and my local MP at the same time and all. Well, that's where all your local MPs are sat, and they're bringing these bogus charges out so that they can go and have the £40 breakfast and do what they're doing. You know, it's really time of people woke up to realise that these are our servants and the lives they're living. There's soldiers on the street, there's young children on the streets suffering, there's old people on the streets who fought. You know, these are people that have lived a life. Your signature creates money. There should not be one homeless man or woman on these streets. And that's irrelevant if they turn to heroin, they're alcoholic, or they're clean. There should not be one man or woman on these streets, period. And this is because the purported authorities that persons believe in are just robbing us. You know, you don't owe nothing to nobody. I mean, at the end of the day, your gas, your water, electric, we are the land. It says this in the Bible: from the dust to the dust you return, from the dust you came to the dust you return. So we are the land. These are our lands. So everything on these lands are ours within reason, you know. The gas and the water is harvested from our lands, but then you've got this foreign cartel, Kabbalah, raping us. And these are who your local councils work for, with the deception that they're here for us. They're not here to help anybody.
Let's talk about what we can do now then, Danny. We talked about some of the things that we can do. We talked about easiastical dipole. Do you want to go through what that is?
Well, that's as far. I've never done one, me, but I've heard about it. Obviously, off my friend there. That ties in with the Roman Canon Law 2057. Again, it's some form of status, standing, and competency over your estate. So apparently, it gives you your copyright name and trademark, but I can't verify that.
Okay,
it's not something that I've used.
Maybe
but I do know that it's linked to the SESQV and the Roman Canon Law, specifically it's Canon 2057.
Okay, because we have two or more people in the group that could speak on that, and perhaps we'll do that. We'll ask Conrad to come and talk about it. Simone, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
Not really. I mean, we were talking before about, Danny, you've obviously spent a lot of time researching this stuff, but also when you open this box, you start to see other things so differently. And you were explaining to me on one of our conversations about the Wizard of Oz. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And you explained how that tied into the 1930 Geneva Convention and the 1931 gold standard. Do you want to explain about that?
Yeah, well,
that's really interesting.
Well, they took the gold bullion in the Geneva Convention that's in the Gold Standard Act 1930, 1931.
This is where they asked everybody to hand in their gold, right? And for exchange of these fiat currency.
So it's a mockery, the Wizard of Oz. It starts in black and white, which means the truth. So it was under the truth while we had the gold currency and that. So it soon switches to colour. which that is Title 18, 241, 242 of the Uniform Commercial Code, the deprivation of our rights under the colour of law. So the yellow brick road is gold. OZ is ounces of gold. It's not Oz. It's the Wizard of Ounces, and they're following the yellow brick road. You know, she's had a house stolen off the bankers. You know, and that's when it goes into the colour of law. This is what they're doing. So it's proper in your face. And it starts off as the truth. There's a lot more subliminal messages in there, like red shoes, emerald doors. You know, this all links to Freemasonry. But it really is a story about what's happening, because when it went into the colour of law, she got a tax identification number, the Tin Man. And then you've got the straw man, which is your birth certificate, you know, and then you've got a lion with no heart. So that's probably a people that they don't have the a cajoles about them to do anything. Just go with the flow, like, oh, we've got to, oh, it is what it is, isn't it? You know, they're voting to be dumb, you know, and by dumb, I mean not have a voice. They cannot voice anything, you know, they can't say, hang on a minute, you're getting a bit out of hand now with these acts. We've not voted for any of these acts, you know, but they just persistently, under the illusion that they're doing something right, voting for child abusing, murderous, lying parasites is exactly what they are. Doesn't matter if it's Boris Johnson, child abuse. How many children has he killed? If he's not fiddled with them, you know, he's killing them in a war that's persisting every day. He's putting lives in jeopardy. We've got an immigrant problem, so they say. It's because we're terrorists. You go and bomb another man's country, another woman's country. What were these people going to go? We shouldn't be at war. And that's under the acts of war itself, the Terrorism Act, the Roman Treaty and that. We should not be at any war. We've not been bombarded. But again, this is the bankers. This is what they do. They create a fiction, and the hardship is death and destruction to all forms of God-given life, you know, birds, bees, men, women, children. Nothing's of any relevance to these fake Khazarian Jews. It says this in Revelation 2.9. They're in the Bible. You know, they claim the first 5 books, but they don't own anything of the Bible. These are not children of Israel. These are Canaanites. Yeah. These are born of a serpent. You know, and this is the problem, because when a man mentions the word Jew, which is a synonymous word anyhow, they claim the Hebrew. The letter J doesn't exist in the Hebrew. You know, you get the brand of anti-Semitic. I'm a proud anti-Shemitic. Me, I'm sick of these devil worshippers' signs and symbols. And this is who your governments are working for. This is why they've all got registered on Dun & Bradstreet. You know, they work for the bank. They'll never, ever, ever work for we a people. I don't care who they are.
They've all got for profit.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's linked to the Dun & Bradstreet numbers they've all got. They're sworn in.
And people, I guess there's not many people realize that even Great Britain is a corporation. Even United States of America is a corporation. They are corporate entities with under commercial jurisdiction or statutory jurisdiction, because they can't operate as a dead entity in the common law, which is for man, woman. It just can't. In fact, common law is higher. It's the highest laws. Danny, we've been talking with some other guys, some really good people, as a little sort of offshoot to try and see if we can come up with a plan that's going to have a bit of a ripple effect across. Well, it's international, because this applies to everybody. This doesn't just stop with the UK. This is happening all over the world. Like you say, wherever there is a Fed Reserve Bank, that they are owned. They are and the people are their slaves. So we've been mulling over different ways that we can go on the offense. And I know that word is illiterate, but we're looking at, well, there's kind of 2 different elements to it. The first thing is to hold them personally liable for the crimes that they're committing. And the second way is to take ownership, get your trust back under your ownership. And we think that those two streams running in parallel would be of benefit, because you got to hit them where it hurts. And if you're hitting them where the money is, and you're not playing there, but in doing that, you're playing by their rules at the same time, they don't have a leg to stand on.
That's it. We've got to go for the individual, the mainly the chief executive, director, whatever they purport to be. And like you said, you're quite right, because it's a name game, but it's all about the money, isn't it? So when we people start bankrupting these null and void chief executives, they have no rights. You know, this is where people get mistaken. These are order followers, so they've only got duties, responsibilities, and orders, and their orders don't come into our unalienable God-given rights. So we have the power. Until people understand that, then we can just stop overnight and stop this. But I mean, in the meantime, for me, it's attacking, not physically. Not that I wouldn't mind doing that, like, but we have to financially attack these parasites. And we have to destroy them, because you see, when you make these directors or chief executives bankrupt, they'll never ever work in that line again because of the bad credit history. So hopefully these will be the ones that we're putting on the street, and they deserve to be on the streets. No man does, but these do, for the hardship that they've caused and persist to cause. It's like some power crazed rush for them, innit? They do not have any power, but they thrive on basically our ignorance.
Tell us about that real life example. Was it in the States with six people went after one governor? Was it?
Where's that? I've never heard of that. It's
we had a chat about it last night. I forget who said it. It must have been Conrad. We're talking about a governor got pursued by 6 people consecutively.
Yeah. There's a guy called Carl Washington who does that in America. Oh,
I think Danny must have accidentally bowed out, but I'm sure he'll join again. So where I was going with that question is, I do remember in the conversation we've had with the other guys that someone has actually done this, and they use some instruments called commercial liens and torts. Here he is.
You can actually go to their website and check them out. They've been doing a lot of things in terms of smart meters, doing exactly what you're saying, Danny, going after them personally. And they've had huge success. And when you listen to his story over the last couple of years, he served these commercial liens, which sound fancy, but all it is a claim. Claim for injury, claim for loss, a claim for harm, but holding not even person, it's the man or woman. And instead of going because you can write to the CEO of the corporation, but you're just writing to the dead entity, and you can't you can't take them into the same court, which is the common law court, which is where you want to get them. If you're going after the flesh and blood man or woman, you drag them into a common law court, which is where you get your remedy.
Well, it's like I said, all the courts are dissolved. The passage in the Bible that stuck with me all through my childhood, obviously, you've got the book of Daniel, being called Daniel, but it's where Jesus beat them all in their own courts with their own laws. And I think this is the hardship, you know, for anybody, because it is quite a lot of education. You have to be sharp, you know, because like I said, these are wordsmiths, some of these judges and that. But for me, from what I've witnessed on my journey, when you're dealing with the dead, they'll override you every time. But if you get the man in his private capacity or the woman, then you've got at least some sort of even playing field, battleground, you know, because you're both, a man's bringing another man to court, and they must allow you to speak, you know, especially if you're bringing the claim forward. You're the claimant, they're the liabilities. So I think that's where the battle needs to be won. For me, the liens and the torts are all good. I mean, I know that Lance, he was bang on with the torts and that, but there's a lot of people out there that have done these liens and, you know, they're praising them, but they've not done nothing. You know, you can't get a remedy because I believe they're asking for too much money, first and foremost, in the region of billions and trillions. You know, I mean, when you're asking for, we are all priceless under God's law anyhow, so they're quite right. But I think the banks won't cash the liens in because of the billions that they're asking for. It makes a mockery of the whole system in itself. I mean, if the bank are paying out that money, you know, where's it coming from? They're in debt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do believe you'll get some form of remedy through them, maybe like cease and desist. You know, they'll retract what they're doing.
Or
the other hardship with the lien. Well, maybe, especially if you get their address. This is the hardship with doing liens and torts. You need their private address because now you've got a capital to come from, be that the house, the car, the possessions, the ornaments, whatever, the bank account. You know, you've got them. But that's the hard thing. You can't get a business's details. They just ignore you. So I'm at the stage now. I mean, I've looked into the lien and tort process. I'm not dogging it because it should work accordingly. It's quite a beautiful thing. But for me, my battle lies in court. You know, I want my estate, I want full revestment that's gifted under their acts. And I want my status and competency addressing immediately. You know,
so let's put this into context. So Danny here has been at this for several years now. Is it several years now, Danny?
Yeah, six years or so.
6 years. Some of your friends have been doing it for longer. And what's happening here is we're condensing all this knowledge. And Simone, bless her, only woke up to 9/11 and all the everything, took a whole bucket full of red pills in December last year to January, and look how far she's come. She's definitely the Aston Martin Lagonda or Zonda of fast tracks to taking all the red pills. So look, I just commend you, Simone, for getting this far so quickly and having the audacity and courage to just pick up the reins of this quite challenging subject. But what I think we've got here, something is really powerful. We've got a YouTube channel with 7,000 subs. We've got a Facebook group with 17,000 members, and quite a lot of very keen people who are keen to find out what's possible here. So with this platform and the people that are in this kind of power group, if you like, I'm seeing the opportunity here to condense and leverage everyone's experience, to wait. Maybe it might take a few weeks, a few months to get through some of the learnings and the hurdles that the guys have got to get through. But how powerful would it be to have power groups in every city that are going to learn some of these things? And let's face it, I've seen a lot of comments in here, and I'm learning myself in this subject. It's a challenging road. It's got its issues and pitfalls, but I do see power in the numbers. So Danny, why don't you give us an idea of, you know, some of the pitfalls, some of the risks, but some of the, also paint a picture, if you will, of what's possible in your eyes.
From what I've discovered, you lose a lot of so-called friends. They can't keep up with you. I can't go to the pub. I can't go in there speaking about football that I used to follow avidly, or Coronation Street in EastEnders. It just doesn't fit my cognitive. I can't speak about that absolute nonsense that most believe is real. So you lose a lot of friends, depending on where you're going and who you're attacking. You may get a conspiracy on your medical report and or mentally sectioned. You know, I know a few people that have been sectioned for no warranted reason, shall we say, under the 136, I think it is section 136, 135.
Wow.
So you know, it's a very solitary journey. You know, for 5 years, you know, if you're not comfortable with yourself and within yourself, then it's definitely not for that man or woman. You know, if you like attention and you like crowds of people and playing to the crowd, it's certainly not. You will lose a lot of people. You know, you'll be degraded. So it's just
true.
about being within. It's just about being within yourself. It's your own self-confidence. You know, I know this has been absolutely hammered out of us since the day we was born, really. But, you know, it's a very solitary path, and, you know, lonely for those that may need company and may need people to keep them feeling safe. I don't know. But there is a lot of, it's a very dangerous path to walk. You know, they can bring false allegations up against us at any time that can further condemn us. You know, I've been very fortunate. I've had a few torts like that put on me, like to keep the distance because I've been threatening and so on. But like I said, it's just becoming comfortable within is really what needs to be interpreted first and foremost. You know, you need to be at one with yourself. You know, because there's times. I mean, there's times I've hit brick walls. I've thought, oh, I've learned what I've learned. I can't go anywhere. And then all of a sudden, obviously, it must be from the divine light. More things come your way. You know, there's more light shed onto your situation. But it's it is very solitary. I mean, I can't really go, like I said, to the local pub and speak about this to anybody. You know, when you take the basic, you say, look, your whole world's a nonsense, mate. You're illiterate, and everything that you believe in is just fabricated, superficial bullshit. It doesn't really sit well.
It's so true because, you know, having woken up relatively recently, my circle of friendships, my family relationships, it's all turned upside down. And you have to be a really strong person because, like you say, once you start uncovering and unveiling all this stuff, it's actually quite a lot for you as an individual, you know, to process, and I don't even, you know, just to digest because it's so much. But then on top of that, when you're losing the people that you love or that are supposed to be the most supportive around you, or when you can't relate to them any longer in the same way, that is it's even worse. It feels like it feels really isolating.
Yeah, absolutely. You're getting some love in the chat room there, both of you guys. Well, listen, I don't know how you've coped, to be honest. Dawn has said to me many a times, I don't know how Simone has managed to cope with that. I'd be a crying mess in the corner if I'd had to swallow all those red pills.
Don't see me in the quiet times when I spend on my own.
Oh, bless you. Well, it is so amazing that you're not only like I told you about this amazing group only 2 weeks ago. We've already had 2 behind the scenes conversations. That's with me involved, but I gather you've been chatting away to Danny as well. I mean, massive testament to you, Simone, for grasping this, because you're grasping it much quicker than I am. And even if all we do is just get people onto a waiting list ready for the information, that has served a massive purpose.
Yeah, it's so true, Robin, because from these conversations, the way I'm seeing it is there needs to be a number of different endeavors going on at the same time, you know, running them in parallel. You've got the Article 61 Magna Carta movement, which is getting everybody understanding under it and bringing redress at government level. Yes, again, it's a numbers game, and it's going to be for some people and it's not going to be for other people. And then you have this common law court where you can it's a court, it's a tort of law. They're causing harm or injury, and you can go after the individual person. Now that's going to appeal to a number of people to do that because they feel more comfortable doing that. And then you're going to have other people who want to be involved in I know that, for example, the common law courts, they're looking for peace officers at the moment. So in every town and in every region, there will be peace officers that can then help with anyone who's trying to take children away from parents, or go and stand with people solidarity in court or at the police station, or it is a time, I believe, and a season where all God's people are now coming together, and all these different streams are starting to merge together. And I think all we need to do is say to people, well, where is your entry point? What risk are you willing to take, and what time are you willing to invest? And if it is just writing a letter to your local authority to get a freedom of information request, then that's so be it. But you're playing a part, and I really think that this needs to be you need to be supported in doing it. So what we're trying to do is get regional representatives or local representatives that we can then start disseminating tactical plans of action that are going to then have this ripple effect. So if you've got, for example, 10 people in Swindon, 20 people in London, 30 people in Bolton, or around about those locations, those individuals would get together and write and target 2 or 3 specific individuals, whether it's a corporation or whether it's government. I mean, they're all corporations anyway, but the idea is that if there's people going in and targeting these individuals or these corporations on specific dates and a specific number of people doing it, they can't hide from that. They can't ignore you.
Sure. And how are you planning to organize everyone? Have you got a means to start doing that?
The first I have started a mapping system. So all the people that signed up to our mailing list, Event 202, who provided details of their location because they wanted to be a part of this. I'm not saying this specific project, but Event 202, they were definitely wanting to find local people and connect with local people. So we've created a map where we can see how many people are in different locations. And I have a lady right now who is working on that map, and she's going to begin emailing groups of people that she can see on that map who are together and asking them, would you like to be involved with this local for an action plan, consolidated effort across the regions, and this goes to America and Australia and other parts of the world as well.
Amazing. And how can people actually link up with you today if they hadn't done so already on the Event 202?
We've got a Facebook page for Event 202. We've got a Telegram chat group, Event 202. We've got a MeWe account for Event 202.
Okay.
We've got an email. So, Robin, your
my email address. So yeah, I think what would be useful is if people want to join the overarching Event 202, what we'll do is if you can email me, robin3108@hotmail.com with the subject exit info as shown on the scroller there. We'll assume you want to be part of Event 202. We'll get you to the overall database, and I'll also keep you on the list for follow-up actions with anything Danny wants to do, or anyone in that sort of Article 61 commercial liens and torts principles. Anything along those lines, we'll get in touch. So, Danny, is there anything we've not asked you that you wanted to cover off tonight? Because we've we've got time. You've got the microphone. Anything you want to say?
No, I think, like I said, I understand how I speak and that, and I don't want to lose people, you know, in what I'm saying and that, not being big-headed. So I think that for me, that should be sufficient. You know, if they look at what I'm saying, like in Title 18.1342, emphasizes that it is a fictitious name and an address. You know, just simple things like that. Just to see if it will register a little bit, to think, hang on a minute, yeah. You know, I think I've said enough. Like, I don't want to lose people too much on that.
No worries.
I think what we're going to work towards, you know, that's you included, Robin. We're going to work towards getting a pack of this information, resources, and recommended, you know, reading or whatever is that we feel is necessary to undertake each step. So we want to help people, guide them through a process, because it is a process, and there is, you know, some of them are 90 days, or, you know, it takes a little time. But that's why I also believe you need to do it with other people, so you don't feel overburdened. But it is, I think it's a worthwhile project. I think it will make a ripple effect if we align it strategically enough. But we're working with Danny and a few others to bring all of that documentation and all of those references and information to the people.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a good point to wrap up. So just finally, folks, if you want to go on that mailing list, do just follow the instructions there. Simone, you haven't got a YouTube channel yet, have you? Or shall we? Are we just going to stream on this one? Are we for now?
Yeah, I do have a Google, a YouTube account, but I have never used it. So
okay, well, let's both sit on this one for these kind of subjects. So for those who've asked what's Simone's YouTube channel, it is this one. It's the Event 202 channel. And for Danny, is there any way people can get in touch with you, or that you prefer?
I'm banned on Facebook, but yeah, I'm on Facebook. I've just got a 30-day ban again today.
If people want to get a hold of Danny, they can come through us, so it's fine. You know, we can connect you.
That's right. So just use the email address there. That's absolutely fine, and we'll get in touch with you. No problem at all. So we want to thank you for your time and all your experience, Danny. It's been a pleasure tonight having you on.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Thank you both.
And we shall sign out now. Thanks, Simone, for helping with the interview. And we will see you again, wonderful and amazing people, next time. Keep tuned. Do make sure you've subbed and bell to this channel, and you'll get the next update from the next guest who'll bring on some radical insights like Danny has. Go well, everyone. Take care. See you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.